In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Beloved brothers and sisters, once again it is my privilege and my pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you some of that which we have learned as a result of being students of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Today, on this Super Sunday, I would like to be as brief as possible. So I better get right to the message. The Holy Quran, which is the book of scripture of the Muslims, teaches us that once upon a time man was nothing that we should speak of. This teaches us the humble origin of all life. We all emerge from a tiny or cloudy drop of water that is called sperm. That is a very humble origin. And that is not conversation for civilized people or intelligent people to talk of sperm. Likewise, when God brings a people to greatness, he brings them from humble origins. This is written in the Quran to say to a people of God's choice today, and to say to a powerful people who rule the world today, that once upon a time you were nothing to speak of. The people that are nothing to speak of today are the black people of America and the world. And the people that Allah is reminding that once upon a time they were nothing to speak of is the Caucasian people who are the present world rulers. If the Caucasian people once upon a time were nothing to speak of, how then did they become such masters in the land? How did the Caucasians come from nothing to master the sea, to now go out into space and to make a contraption that has been out in space since the latter 70s, visiting the planets and taking a peep into the heavens? As the Holy Quran again teaches, that those whom Allah would destroy, he first gives them a peep into the heavens. He makes them to see how awesome he is, how magnificent he is, how awe-inspiring is his creation. And he makes you to see by looking at what is above your head and beneath your feet that you make yourself a fool to oppose the originator of the heavens and the earth. But he does this to a man that he's about to destroy. Say, now that you have exalted yourself to be a God and a Lord beside me, and you even have some of my own foolish servants worshiping you as they ought to worship me, I'm going to show you how insignificant you are. I'm going to remind you what I brought you from, and then I'm going to let you get a peep into the heavens to see just the power that you are trying to fight against. Perhaps maybe you fall down and prostrate and beg forgiveness, but I think it's a little late. I think it's a little late. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has opened up the history of the Caucasian people for us as he was taught by Master Farad Muhammad, whom I represent to the world as the best knower among us. For we did not know these things until one taught us. And so if a man who has completed the 4th grade of school teaches us that which we did not know before, then one mighty in power has taught such one. The Caucasian people do not argue with this teaching. In fact, they will be quiet around their radios today on Super Sunday, and they will reflect with us at how far, not that they came, because that suggests you're moving on your own power. But when somebody brings you from a mighty long way, then you must always remember who it was who brought you wherever you are. Now, the Caucasian people, who now are such masters and lords in the earth, had a very humble beginning due to a chastisement. They made trouble among the holy people after they were made. They turned what is called the Garden of Paradise, or the Garden of Eden, which the scholars put between the Tigris and Euphrates River in the Middle East. They turned that area upside down by the telling of lies and creating of mischief. So they were driven out of the Holy Land into the hills and cave sides of Europe, as we are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Since Europe was hilly and filled with caves, the original people who knew the whole planet, had visited every part of our planet, had chosen the best part for himself. And therefore the original people, or the black people, chose that rich Nile Delta and that part of northeast Africa, which you call the Holy Land. That really is a part of Africa. And we were the original inhabitants there. I say this very respectfully to the present Palestinians and others. Your fathers there, the original people in those areas, were all black. The original Arabs that inhabited the Arabian Peninsula are black. The original inhabitants of that area that is called Palestine, Jericho, and all those areas, black people. And they are still there today in abundance. But, of course, that area being so important in world affairs, one could not rule the world without having some sway over that area. So conquering Egypt, conquering the Nile, conquering Northeast Africa has been the aim of every conqueror that has come up. And every conqueror from Europe that has come up, that has come down into what is called the Middle East, their desire was to conquer the heartland of the earth, to conquer that part of the earth from which spiritual guidance has come to all of the peoples. The Caucasian people, for making trouble in that area, were driven out. In your Masonic rituals, the cable tow is a part of a ritual that reminds the present-day Caucasians of what their fathers suffered crossing the burning sands of the Arabian desert as they were being driven westward out of the civilized lands of the holy people into the hills and cave sides of Europe. In the Bible, it teaches us that when Adam broke the peace of the garden, he was put out of the garden, and a flaming cherubim was put at the east gate to keep him from coming back in. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that this has reference to the Caucasian people, a new people, and they are under the symbol of Adam, though we know that that also has a reference to us. They are under the number 6, but that also has a reference to us, for we also are under the number 6. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, and the Bible bears witness when it says, count the number of the beast, for the number of the beast is the number of a man. Well, the beast is a man too, but he's under the little 6, and the original man is under the big 6. He has to be under whatever number we are under in the way of creation, because he comes from us. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now he's cable-toed, driven out from among us as a new people, a troublemaking people, a rebellious people. Adam then was put out of the garden. It's referring to the Caucasian race. Some of them were hidden. Listen carefully. Some of them were hidden. And as the lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us, we rounded up all that we could find, meaning that there were some that we could not find that were there. I'm talking about Caucasian people in the Middle East who grew up there under our way of life. And then the scripture says, and the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and took them to be wives. The sons of God here are referring to the original inhabitants of that part of the earth, seeing the daughters of men. Now you have sons of God, sons of men. Now you have the delineation of beast and man. But we're really talking about two kinds or species of human beings. We're talking about the original man, who is referred to as God, because the original man is the first creation of the God, and the very nature and essence of the God is in the nature and essence of his first creation, which is the black people of the earth. This is why you are called by Allah the righteous, even though you are not practicing righteousness. You are born of the righteous. You are born of God. The nature of God is your nature. But the Caucasian is a grafted human being from you. And in coming out of the original people, he's like you, but not the same essence as you. As the carbon copy is not as valuable as the original, neither can the made man be equal to or as valuable in the sight of Allah as the original. Now this may sound to you like some racist doctrine, but no, this is absolute truth. Now, of course, you can mock yourself or drop yourself down in the eyes of God by not living according to your nature. And the Caucasian can come up in the eyes of God if he rejects the nature in which he's created and obeys God.
Come on, brother. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, let us talk for a moment on the sons of God and the daughters of men, and count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Now, the sons of God, black people, saw the daughters of men. There is an attraction here, because the daughters of men were fair or light-skinned or white-skinned, and we were black, and this set up the law of attraction. Unalike began to attract. So as the black man took these white women for mates, race mixing began in the Holy Land. And of course, when conquerors came down, they also mixed their blood, and the blacks were gradually pushed out of areas of power, pushed out from the Mediterranean, pushed out from the lower Nile, which is at the mouth of the Nile, pushed further and further into the interior of Africa, while the blacks controlled all of those waterways, because you cannot be a great commercial man, a great trader, without having control or having waterways. So they pushed us away, and we lost that ability to have the commercial centers. They took that over. And so if you look in the Middle East today, you will find, even in Iraq, in Syria, you will find very dark Syrians, very dark Iraqis. But when you see the Syrians in America, the Lebanese in America, the Iraqis in America, they are all white. Yes. Well, this is because the immigration system here does not want dark Iraqis in, dark Syrians in, because then you might get the thought that you got some people over there. Come on, brother. They don't want you to understand. They don't want you to understand that you are an international and universal people. Okay, so the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. Now this is going on in the Holy Land among people that were left behind, and others were driven into the caves and hillsides of Europe. Now when they got into the hills and cave sides of Europe, many of them, some of them, tried, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us, to graft themselves back into their original selves, and they did a bad job of it, and they got as far as the ape, yes. And from that, oh yes, yes. Oh yes. Yes. The ape is not an old fella. He's no older than 6,000 years on our planet, but he is related to the Caucasian people, and that, no, I'm not trying to be smart. That's why when they say, well, I'll be a monkey's uncle, they know what they're talking about.
Go ahead, Brother Minister.
They love the monkeys. They love the chimpanzee. They love all that family there.
They do. Go ahead, Brother Minister.
And that's what I understand. I'm not making a mockery. But Allah says in the Quran that those who rebel, He turned them into apes and swine. See, the swine here is not the physical pig, but as it is a lover of filth. When a human being who is supposed to move toward divine, move toward God, move toward reflecting His righteousness, rebels against good guidance, God turns him into an animal. And he begins to look like an animal, act like an animal, smell like an animal. Yes. And the lowest of animals is the ape and a swine. Yes, sir. You understand? Very good. So don't let anybody call you a pig. And that's another reason why you should stop eating it. If somebody called you pig, you'd smack them in their face, because it's an ugly animal and a nasty animal. And if you are what you eat, then maybe you should cut out eating the flesh of such a detestable, abominable animal in the sight of God. Now let's move on. You say, well, God made it. God made a lot of things, but not for you to eat.
Go ahead, Brother Nutty. Go ahead.
Happy Super Sunday to you. Let's move on. So now you have a Caucasian growing among the holy people, growing up without the teaching of their father, Yaqub, growing up without a teaching of lies and tricks. Because what makes the Caucasian devil is not so much the grafting of him physically, but it is the teaching of his father, Yaqub, that makes him of a mind where he wants to dominate and rule the black, the brown, the red, the yellow, and his heart and his mind is a mind of lying and murder according to the way he was taught.
Come on, brother.
So the only way he could be saved is to destroy his mind. Hear me now. Those Caucasians that were growing up in the Middle East, they were not growing up according to the teaching of Yaqub. They were growing up according to the righteous principles of those holy people of that area. So you have many white people who live in that area where they would be offended if you called them devil, because they have tried all their lives to live according to the way of the prophets. But the moment they get out of that environment and come over here, then you see a complete change come over them, and they become just like their brethren over here, showing you that they have a natural leaning to that filthy way. And the minute you get them out from under the law of Prophet Muhammad, you will see a devil sure enough coming after you. Listen to me. So now you have one growing up under right and another one growing up with no guidance at all. So the Caucasian in the hills and cave sides of Europe was something to see. Look at what the Holy Quran says in the 18th surah, which is called the cave. It's talking about them and somebody else that I'll introduce you to in a minute. In the 18th verse it reads, "And thou mightest think them awake while they were asleep. And we turned them about to the right and to the left, with their dog outstretching its paws at the entrance. If thou didst look at them, thou wouldst turn back from them in flight, and thou wouldst be filled with awe because of them." Now, Caucasians know this of their history. If you look at the Caucasians that lived in the hills and cave sides of Europe, if you could see them in the state that they were in, you would turn back in flight and run, and you would be filled with awe seeing human beings looking so terrifically animal-like. You had it in a movie that they made recently about fire, Quest for Fire. You saw them hardly making sounds. They didn't speak a language.
Go ahead, brother minister.
I'm not making mockery. But Allah took off of them the garments of the holy people when they were driven into the caves of Europe. The only thing they had with them was the language, and they lost that.
Come on, brother minister.
And their only friend was the dog. So today they say that man's best friend is a dog. Well, in that sense, yes. But when it comes to us, God's best friend is not dog. God's best friend is another God. But unfortunately, this man had fallen. And now only thing that befriended him was a dog. A friend of mine told me the other day that they moved. No, I'm sorry. He's a friend of mine. He don't know it. He was on television, and they were asking him about the neighborhood that he moved into. And he moved into a white neighborhood, and they didn't want him in there. And he said he's trying to befriend his neighbors. He had a dog. And his white neighbor came into the yard and would not speak to black human beings, and petted the dog and walked out of the yard, leaving two human beings standing there in awe. But if you read the Quran, my dear brothers and sisters, you'd understand. Because as the Quran says of the righteous, where there are two of you, I am the third. Where there are three of you, I am the fourth. Where there are five of you, I am the sixth. Meaning that God is ever present with the righteous. In the 22nd verse of the 18th chapter, it says, some say they were three, and the fourth of them their dog. And others say five, the sixth of them their dog, making conjectures about the unseen. Now, meaning that Some say 7, and the 8th of them their dog. Say, my Lord knows best their number. How many dogs there were and how many humans there were, all I know. But the dog was present with him, and the dog is present with him now. Now. Think of a man and a woman living in a cave. The mouth of the cave facing north. The sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. And they're in a cave, huddled down, learning to make a little fire. But it's damp in the cave. It's dark in the cave. And they retreat in the cave. And if you've ever put a cast on your hand or a cast on your foot and there is no light that can get to your hand, you grow an inordinate amount of hair on that hand or on that leg when you remove the cast. Right. But when they're in the dark and there's no light on them, then they began to grow an inordinate amount of hair. Hair covered their bodies. Hair covered their faces. They walked on their armed fours so that their hands were like the animals with great strength in the hand, to move them along. Their only example was the animal. You've seen movies of people, a child that lost a mother, and it was reared by the animals. So the sounds that the animals made, the child made. The movements that the animal made, the child made. I am telling you, beloved, without mockery, that this is the origin and humble beginning of the world rulers. Mr. Reagan's family. Do you understand? Mr. Gorbachev's family. Mr. Bush's family. You understand? Mr. Shimon Peres's family. All these world, Margaret Thatcher's family in London, Queen so-and-so and Princess Diana. You understand? They had a humble origin. They live in palaces today and call you nigger and don't want to be near you, but I'm telling you, they live with dogs. They did not know how to bury their dead. They did not know how to cook their food. They were drinking water out of the skulls and remains of their dead. The dead would die and they would not even bury their dead. So whenever one of human stature would look at something like that, they would run back in flight, in awe of what they were looking at. People who were unclean and filthy. Some of them even grew tails. Come on, brother. Yes, sir. I don't say this for mockery, and some are born with tails today. That's right. I have seen pictures of this. I say again, this knowledge is not coming to you for you to mock another human being. But this knowledge is coming to you so that white people who are proud and arrogant and forgot your origin in the world may be reminded that you once upon a time were nothing to speak of. And thus did we rouse them, that they might question each other. Allah says we roused them. Out of that condition, somebody had to come and wake them up. How long have you tarried? They could not tell you how long they were in the caves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said they were in that condition for 2,000 long years. From the time of Adam to the time of Moses is 2,000 years. And they were in that condition until Musa came to teach them the forgotten technology. You think that Moses went down in Egypt and told Pharaoh, let my people go. But Moses is the great emancipator of the Caucasian people. He's revered and honored by them. Prophet Muhammad was a man like Moses, but nevertheless, that Moses was a sign of a greater one. And that Muhammad was a sign of another one. Hear me well, beloved. As it took Moses 22 years to civilize the Caucasian in the caves of Europe, He was not fighting a powerful king, a powerful ruler. He was fighting the powerful ignorance of the cave dweller.
Every Thursday night the vibe is set. Brother Leo and Sister Claudia, you won't forget. They're bringing truth, they're bringing light. Tune in, let them spark your mind tonight. The Imagination Show. Oh, every Thursday let it flow. Oh, Brother Leo, Sister Claudia, in the glow. It's the place to be, you already know. They talk that talk, they walk the walk, breaking it down, no need for small talk. Wisdom flying like the eagle's soar. You'll leave with more than you came here for. Open your heart, let your mind expand. Feel the rhythm, take a stand. The Imagination Show. Oh, every Thursday let it flow. Oh, Brother Leo, Sister Claudia, in the glow. It's the place to be, you already know. Open your heart, let your mind expand. Feel the rhythm, take a stand. The Imagination Show. Oh, every Thursday let it flow. Oh, Brother Leo, Sister Claudia, in the glow. It's the place to be, you already know. Soulful voices on the air, breaking barriers everywhere. Turn it up, don't let it fade. Thursday nights are tailor-made. Soulful voices on the air, breaking barriers everywhere. Turn it up, don't let it fade. Thursday nights are tailor-made.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I greet you, my dear beloved brothers and sisters of the Imagination family, in the greeting words of peace. We say it in Arabic. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Welcome, 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 dear beloved family, to another episode of the Imagination Show. My name is Brother Leo Muhammad, and sitting alongside me is my beloved wife and dear friend, Sister Claudia Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you all in the greeting words of peace, of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And welcome to another edition of the Image and Nation Show. I pray to Allah that you are all safe and well and enjoying the countless, can't even count the amount of blessings and mercy, divine mercy that we are receiving from Almighty God, Allah. It may not seem like it, but we are divinely protected. So welcome. I feel very shiny today.
Yeah, it's hot, family. It's beautiful. It's hot. The weather is beautiful, and we are thankful and grateful to Almighty God Allah for blessing us with another beautiful day of good weather. We pray that you are all well. At this time, I would like to encourage you to call a family friend, a loved one, let them know that Image Nation is live right now on YouTube and also on Zoom. Also, dear family, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Imagination Show. Let us grow the show. Let's make the show something very powerful and dynamic as we go forward. On the Imagination Show, the objective always is to call you to action. It's to call you to look at the subject matter and to really appreciate that this is not a day for sitting down. Today is a day for doing. Today is a day for taking responsibility of our lives. Today is a day for us to really appreciate that if we can imagine it, if we can see it in our mind's eye, if we can conjure up, this nation in our vision, then we can bring it into reality. And the whole concept and idea of the Imagination Show is to empower the individual to realize that your destiny, your success, everything is in your hands.
That's right.
With the help and the grace and the mercy of Almighty God, Allah. So, dear family, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all of our regulars. I can see many.
Yes, Jimmy Mitchell's going to our favorite place.
The dentist.
Yes.
Yeah, I did send him a
Yes,
message to say I pray that it goes well.
And our brother Ronald Thompson said he couldn't get the YouTube channel on the algorithm. It looks like they stopped broadcast. I had to type in your name.
Okay.
So
well,
praise be to Allah, you're here.
praise be to Allah. There's always a lot of interference going on the social media. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the UK as it relates to social media. They want to ban under 16-year-olds from being able to get onto social media. But, as always, family, it sounds good on the surface, like, oh, you're really trying to protect the children. But my question is, what about all the children that are being absolutely destroyed all around our planet right now? That those same people who claim that they want to protect 16-year-olds from, bad influences online are standing by and are very silent, and in fact, oftentimes are complicit in the genocidal nature of the type of things which are affecting children on our planet today. So, again, you got to be very, very careful because these people are so tricky and they use such sleight of hand that, make no mistake about it, you think that this is about protecting 16-year-olds, but in reality, you and I, so-called adults, we may very well have to prove that we're not 16. And in trying to prove that we're not 16, we have to give them all of our personal information. So this is a backdoor way of again, harvesting information on the members of the human family. This is a real satanic world that we live in. Go ahead,
sister. Started that on the iPhone, because when you set up a new iPhone, it does ask you, can you, if you're over 18, to have the account, and then they say take a picture of your debit card.
Wow.
And then you take a picture, and then it says, it doesn't work. Put your passport, put a passport picture.
Take a picture of yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and family, make no mistake about it. As we live and breathe, we live in a police state. Okay, we live in a surveillance state. We live in a world where the powers that be are busy trying to exert total control over the members of the human family. And they will do that by hook or by crook. Do not think for 1 minute that they have your interest or the interest of any 16-year-olds in their hearts and in their minds. These are wicked, evil deceivers whose objective in life is to control, to have the power, and to basically continue to rule by any means necessary. And when they say by any means necessary, make no mistake about it, they mean it. Not like when we say by any means necessary, and we don't mean by any means necessary, because we won't go above and beyond in order to bring about the thing that we say we want to bring about. But when they say by any means necessary, by hook or by crook, I mean, if it comes down to world war, if it comes down to murder, if it comes whatever is required, they will do it in order to achieve their ends. Dear family, none of that is our subject this evening. So let me get right into it, because I also do suspect that I'm going to really struggle this evening, even though I'm kind of experimenting a little bit this evening with a lot less writing, but much more in the way of imagery. And I'm hoping that it will work, just really trying to get through a lot of information. So, dear family, let me remove something from my screen and then say to you, welcome to episode 239 of the Imagination Show. Today's Thursday, June 18th, 2026. June is almost over. We got a powerful, powerful day coming up in a couple of days' time, Saturday the 20th.
Yeah.
The Science of Reggae event. It's going to be awesome, family. I hope some of you will be able to make it there, those of you who are in the UK. And the title of our show today is The Fatal Attraction of the Black Man. And for those of you who saw the little thumbnail that we sent out, you will have a clue as to what that fatal attraction is. The fatal attraction of the Black man is what we want to deal with today, because, the word fatal means basically death. Okay. And because of this attraction, we literally are inviting death into our lives. And we're doing it mostly in absolute ignorance, not really appreciating just how serious this type of attraction is. And when we act upon the attraction, what we're inviting into our lives. Today's episode of the Imagination Show is entitled The Fatal Attraction of the Black Man. And we will be using clips from the documentary entitled Jack Johnson, the Most Controversial Black Man in Boxing History. This we're going to use to illustrate the point that despite our obvious superior and godlike qualities, because that's what we have as Black people. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to be falsely humble. Despite, dear family, our obvious superior and godlike qualities, our attraction to this world, because it's not just one thing that we're attracted to. We're attracted to this world and women other than our own woman. This attraction is a fatal one, and we have to, rid ourselves of this type of magnetic attraction, this type of pull, in order for us to come back to our own woman and come back to our own world, and to develop the aptitude and the mentality to build a world of our own, image a nation, to be able to see a nation and manifest it, make it a reality for ourselves, as opposed to trying to fit into somebody else's world. The scripture says we are in the world, but not of the world. This is not a world, family, that we should be embracing. And certainly we shouldn't be embracing all of these women other than ourselves. This is the famous image of Jack Johnson after he defeats this man, Jeffries, for the heavyweight championship of the world. We'll get much, much more into this right now. I pray you are all well, family. So this is how black people used to be treated.
This right here is the last surviving frame of one of the most humiliating moments in white America's history. This heavyweight title fight witnessed the unthinkable. A black contender beating the white champion for the first time in history. Jack Johnson literally chased champ Tommy Burns around the world for a shot at the title. And in 1908 in Australia, he didn't just beat him, he embarrassed him. So much so that the police had to stop the fight out of fear of further humiliation to the whole white race. 2 years later, Jack repeated. He dragged the undefeated Great White Hope out of retirement and dismantled him in front of a crowd praying for a racial restoration. And when the news hit the streets, the country erupted. Race riots tore through dozens of cities with bloodshed, hundreds injured, and over 26 people dead. Films of the fight were banned, and Johnson became the most despised man in America. In an age when black men were supposed to keep their eyes down and their voices low, Johnson did everything you weren't supposed to do, and did it in front of the whole world. A loud life, fast cars, tailored suits, a golden grin, and most importantly, white women. Lots of them. In an America that lynched black men for gazing at one, Johnson married 3 and dated even more. This was the straw that broke white America, and if they couldn't beat him in the ring, they'd bend the law to make sure they brought him down. And down he went.
So they say, this is the straw that broke white America, because this black man was a great champion, but equally, he was big time into white women, and he married 3 of them. And he, drove fancy cars, and he dressed like white people, and he did all of these things. And they say this broke him. It didn't break America, dear family. Ultimately, you see, this is what they want you to believe, that somehow this brother, absolutely broke America. Well, he didn't. At the end of the day, when you look at the images, you see that mostly around our brother were them. It was white people. Not only did he have white women, but a lot of the managerial people around him, a lot of the hangers-ons, a lot of the people who were pushing him in a particular direction were Caucasians. And of course, he had some black people, of course, in his family, in his life. But when you look at our brother, his influences were mostly from those people. And even though he became hated, and the racism was such, and the danger surrounding his life was such that, at any moment he could lose his life, because that was the era in which all of this was happening. Here was a man who, up to that point, black men were not even allowed to fight white men. It was against the law. And here you had a black man who had the audacity to not only fight a white man, the heavyweight champion, but beat him up, and then to flaunt it in their face. Well, family, this is what we want to look at, because you see, it's one thing to be the champion. It's one thing to be yourself and to be the powerful, godlike man that we were created to be. But unless you're going to put some protection around yourself and be among your own and keep a demarcation line and a separation between you and the enemy, because they're letting you know in no uncertain terms that they're enemy, but yet you seem hell-bent on being around them. And so it's very interesting. I find the life of our brother Jack Johnson very, very intriguing, very, very interesting. And there are parallels in this modern era that we need to be appreciative of. But yeah, it really speaks volumes, what he went through and what happened in his life story. Their family, in the book of Job, chapter 1, verse 6 to 7, it says, "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. See, if you look at this image, who's the odd one out? You know, but how many of us know that we're walking with Satan, that we're walking with the devil, that quite often, you know, we think that we've arrived because well, what do they call it? Multicultural, multi-ethnic, diversity. Everybody's all mixed up. You know, I was talking to a young lady recently. She was telling me out of a Asian, Caucasian, and there was another mix in there, roots. And, you know, in Jamaica, the motto is out of many, one people. And the implication is that, you know, there's this great mix of races and cultures, and this is what we should be celebrating, this diversity. But in reality, dear family, there is something very powerful in being a Black person, being an original person, and maintaining that originality and maintaining that identity. There's something very important about Caucasian people wanting to remain Caucasian. I've got no problem with that. But you know, this whole mix-up business, we have to be very, very careful. Because you see, the sons of God, they didn't even realize that Satan was walking with them. You see, the scripture goes on to say, and the Lord said unto Satan, whence cometh thou? God looks in the crowd of sons of God who have come to see him. He looks among them and he sees Satan, because God identifies Satan immediately. Whence cometh thou? Asking Satan, well, what are you doing among my people? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth and from walking up and down in it, seeking who I may devour. Satan, you know, Satan's been in and among the people of God, absolutely doing what Satan does best, which is devouring and destroying people. But they didn't even realize who they were walking with. So, dear family, when one observes the life of Jack Johnson, we discover that he was mostly surrounded by Caucasian people and very few of his own. And I'm asking the question, who is in your group? See, who is in your group? Think about it. Who is it that you are entertaining, dear family, today? This is how Black people used to be treated. A great comedy furor, 8 heavyweight colored pugilists in the furiously funny battle royal in barrels. This is something that the Caucasians used to enjoy doing back in the day.
Battle Royale was an absolute demonstration kind of the inferiority of African Americans in the United States or in sports.
The promoter would gather up 4, 6, 8 Black American kids and blindfold them and put them in the center ring, let them swing at each other. Basically, the last guy standing would be the winner.
The object wasn't athletic competition. The object was to laugh, to feel better than the people, the race represented in that ring.
The patronage would throw coins into the ring, and then they'd get a big kick out of watching these kids trying to pick up the money with the hands still in gloves.
So, you know, they would just get us to beat the hell out of each other blindfolded, and then throw a few coins and laugh at us and mock us as we tried to pick up the coins with boxing gloves on. This was in the era of the advent of Jack Johnson.
He was a defensive fighter. He would punish them. As a counterpuncher, he would make them pay for their mistakes.
He was the most scientific fighter there was. He was the most skillful and maybe even the smartest.
Realizing he couldn't build a career he wanted in Galveston anymore, the 23-year-old moved to Denver, where he worked as a sparring partner for top white contender and one of the era's most feared brawlers, Sailor Tom Sharkey, who was preparing for a bout with Fred Russell. Throughout the next year, Jack fought 6 major bouts against more experienced opponents, pushing his official ledger from 5-2-3 to 7-3-5. His success garnered attention, and in May of 1902, he walked into Hazard's Pavilion in Los Angeles as the hand-picked opponent for the hometown favorite, Jack Jeffries. younger brother and sparring partner of world heavyweight champion Jim Jeffries. Jack came in wearing outrageous pink pajamas, yawned in the corner as the crowd howled. Then, systematically, beat Jack Jeffries up and flattened him with a right hand in the fifth. He spent the next few years mowing down opponents, including the best black heavyweights at the time, Sam McVeigh, Joe Jeanette, Sam Langford, and in February 1903, he outboxed Denver Ed Martin over 20 rounds to become the unofficial colored heavyweight champion of the world.
1902, 3, 4. He certainly has a reputation as a very, very good black fighter.
At the same time, his persona was evolving. He started calling himself J. Arthur Johnson and leaned hard into flashy suits, diamonds, and tailored overcoats.
A great word that we have lost is the sport. Everything had to be larger than life. He dressed larger than life. He wore diamond stick pins. He wore wide lapels. Jack Johnson was the quintessential sport.
But Jack Johnson is sharp. I mean, everything he had on, the shoes he picked, the socks he wore, the cut of his pants, the cut of his jackets, the shirts, the ties, he was always much sharper than they were. So he's like this big black Beau Brummel in these beautiful clothes and smiling with his gold teeth at the camera as if I'm here and you're not.
I think there are three black leaders in the first couple decades of the 20th century. One is Booker T. Washington, who has a message saying, hunker down, get education, don't worry about social justice necessarily or social advancement. On the other hand, you have W.E.B. Du Bois, who stands for, we want social equality, we want economic equality, we want advancement on all levels. And then there's Jack Johnson that says, I'm getting mine. But he stands for pure individualism, egoism.
That may really have irritated people because, you know, Johnson is supposed to have sometimes been boxing some guy and he'd hold him and say to his white girlfriend in the first row, say, baby, what round you want me to knock this chump out here? Knock him out in 4, Jack. Okay. What round is it, baby? 4th round, Jack. Spat, bam. Now, if that's true and not just legend, that really had to irritate people.
See, when you think about fighters like Muhammad Ali and all, it's nothing new.
Yes.
I mean, we've always been superior in that arena, in that boxing ring, and Jack Johnson was no different. He was just demonstrating his superiority over all of those fighters. That's why he could literally be in the ring, be so comfortable that he's talking to people at ringside while the fight is going on.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen it before. And you know, when I reflect on the way he was dressing and all of that, see, again, unfortunately, some of us are so ignorant about history that we think that the white man created the suit. We think that the white man created this dress code, when in reality, we're the people, we're the ones going back into the 15th and the 16th century when, you know, it was sword fighting, when it was the rapier and the tights that men wore and those shoes with the buckle, the big buckle. This was black people who created all of these styles and these fashions, the foppish fashions with the shirt, with the frilly shirt sticking out of the collar and all of this. This was black people, family. We were the ones who set these trends and these fashions. And so don't be surprised when you see the black man come along, when you see Chris Eubank here in the UK, you know, and his so-called eccentric dress code or whatever. This was all started by us in the first place, and then the white man took it and then he dresses that particular way. And then like with so many things that we invent and we start, we allow other people to take it over, take ownership of it. Then before you know it, in fact, one of the shows coming up, I'm going to be looking at black inventors. I'm going to show you just how naive we are when it comes to the fact that we have invented every single thing that these people use today, but mostly the patents are in somebody else's name. And so, you know, it's just really, really important that we appreciate
Tommy Byrne, king of the heavyweights. At 5'7" and 175 pounds, Tommy Burns is the smallest champion in history. But in the public mind, the true champion of the universe is undefeated, though retired, James J. Jeffries.
Hart briefly filled the vacuum Jeffries left behind before losing the crown to Tommy Burns in 1906. The Canadian champ loudly advertised himself as the most democratic champion ever, stating he'd defend against all comers, none barred, supposedly even black fighters. In reality, Burns quietly added a condition: white men first. He fought a string of white challengers while pointedly ignoring the one opponent everyone knows is the real threat. With the racial climate making a Johnson-Burns bout politically charged in the U.S., and with his opportunities capped there, Jack followed Burns around Britain, France, and Australia in hopes of getting a title shot.
Jack Johnson had to chase Tommy Burns all over the world in order to get a shot at the heavyweight championship.
Then takes off with his crown, puts it under his arm, and gone. Johnson now takes off after him.
So Johnson actually began a campaign with his promoters to follow Burns any and everywhere for a fight. So here becomes the pursuit.
Jack Johnson follows him to England. Fight me. You want to fight? You want a good fight? You want to fight the best man? Fight me. Doesn't. Johnson dogs him to Australia. You want to fight the best man? Fight me.
In public statements, Burns played both sides of the race issue. In some interviews, he'd stressed that he didn't draw the color line, but he always mentioned that he would require at least $30,000. That's over $1 million in today's money. That sky-high price tag was both shield and bait. Burns used it to keep Johnson at bay unless some promoter somewhere finds insane money. The man who finally turned this global chase into a signed contract was the Scottish-Australian promoter and flamboyant businessman Hugh D. McIntosh. If he could stage the first heavyweight title fight involving a black challenger in front of a massive crowd and capture it on film, the profits would be enormous.
Now suddenly, the people behind Johnson are saying $30,000. Tommy, $30,000. We will pay you $30,000 to fight Jack Johnson.
McIntosh lured Burns to Sydney Stadium at Rushcutters Bay. He offered Burns his $30,000 guaranteed, win, lose, or draw. By far the biggest purse ever paid to a boxer up to that time.
John L. Sullivan says, shame on you, Tommy Burns. Shame on you forever fighting a black man for money, for shame.
Johnson, desperate for a title shot, agreed to accept just $5,000, plus a small extra payment for picture rights and travel expenses, roughly 1/6 of what Burns would earn.
But that's what we were prepared to do. And if you see, he pursued this guy all over the world to get this fight. Do you remember Muhammad Ali chasing Sonny Liston? Same thing. See, but he was brash. He was like a Muhammad Ali of his day. He was making a lot of noise. He was saying, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. I can knock out any of these chumps that you've got, so-called heavyweight champions. And ultimately, this is how he managed to get his shot at the heavyweight championship of the world, dear family, as a black man.
Here's Tommy Burns getting himself into the best shape of his entire career. In 9 days, Tommy will defend his title against the scourge of the heavyweight ranks, Jack Johnson. And Tommy knows that this is going to be the fight of his life. Johnson is training 17 miles away at Rushcutters Bay. There has been a general consensus of opinion that Johnson combines perfect defense and balance with an offensive punching attack which leaves little to be desired in a professional fighter.
December 26, 1908, Rushcutters Bay at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And they packed it with nary a blackface in it, and with the understanding that if it got out of hand, local constabulary would come in and stop the fight.
Round 1, Burns is defending for the 12th time. 26,000 fans hold their breath.
Johnson comes out against Burns, and in the early rounds, it's clear that it's a mismatch. And Johnson starts to taunt Burns. playing with the racial symbolism of the day, saying, come on, hit me in the stomach, Tommy. And then Johnson slowly began to pick up the fight and inflict more physical damage.
Jack London, covering the fight, said, fight? There was no fight. Johnson knocked Burns down in the first round and then toyed with him. Started coming and crying at him, come on, little Tommy, let me see what you got. Come right here where I want you.
And then he starts to emasculate him. He starts saying things like, where did you learn to punch, Tommy? Did your mother teach you how to punch? You punch like a woman. You punch like a girl. What's the matter, Tommy?
Come on, little Tommy, is that the best you have?
Come on, Tommy, your mother can hit harder than that.
Come on, Tommy, hit me. Show him what you have, and then whop, 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 hit him.
And the crowd's hearing this. And Jack Johnson, he's almost bored with the fight. He's talking to people in the crowd. He's talking to people in Burns's corner. That's more of a fight than what's taking place in the ring. And then eventually he got a little bit more cruel and he started to hit him and hurt him and break him down. The people who were watching it, overwhelmingly white, suddenly they're starting to get a bit uncomfortable because Jack Johnson, he's a specimen. He's a big, very strong man.
He was a great scientist. He understood, had a great sense of timing, and poor Tommy Burns couldn't get a lick at him at all.
This tension builds up and it builds up, and Jack Johnson starts hitting him and hurting him. And then if you see the films of it, then suddenly, boom.
At this very moment, in the early seconds of round 14, the police shut off the motion picture cameras and stepped into the ring, awarding
the police stopped the fight. They stopped the camera. They stopped because they couldn't afford for the world to see a white man getting beaten up, knocked, spark out by a black man. That's how that particular fight ended. The police jumped into the ring, stopped the camera, stopped everything, and declared Johnson the winner.
Heavyweight championship of the world to Jack Johnson.
The end of the white man's domination of the heavyweight championship.
Powerful, man.
Yes.
And somebody said something in the chat about teaching our children.
Yes.
You see, but how many of our children do you think know anything about Jack Johnson or know anything about this history, know anything about how, you know, boxing really evolved and how once upon a time black men were not allowed to fight white men, and white men dominated the heavyweight championship of the world, and then a black man comes along and absolutely destroys their champions. And since that time, white people have never really ever been able to get another look in.
The image of the Negro as beast, the Negro as rapist, the Negro as a lustful creature of white women clearly emerges in the minds of a lot of people who were considered to be Negrophobes, people who just hated blacks and wanted to keep them in a subservient position.
Even before his 1911 marriage to Etta Dorea, he was openly dating and traveling with white women, chorus girls, actresses, and sex workers without any attempt at secrecy, something that would unleash the gates of legal hell on him down the line. In an America where black men were lynched for as much as looking at white women, he was arriving at fights, restaurants, and railway platforms with white companions on his arm.
And Johnson's fetish for white women was very obvious.
I hope you saw in the car, when he was in the car with the white woman in that picture, I hope you saw the dog.
On him down the line.
You know, if you were listening to the Honorable Minister.
In an America where black men were lynched for as much as looking at white women, he was arriving at fights, restaurants, and railway platforms with white companions.
See that image? You know, but again, you see how many of us would have been watching this documentary and thinking, yeah, but you know, it's progress, man, and he was defying, you know, the white people. No, he would have been even stronger. He would have been even more fantastic if he had a black woman on his arm. If he wasn't going with these white women and these sex workers and flaunting himself all over the place with these white women, because that compromised him, brothers and sisters. That made him vulnerable to the enemy who hated to see this black man with their woman. You know, and I say to those of us in the modern era who are doing this, like, understand that, you know, white men in particular are getting more and more angry when they see us with what they regard as their woman, because it's their woman, you know? And at some point, it's going to get to a stage where they're going to say they want their woman back. So be warned.
On his arm.
And Johnson's fetish for white women was very obvious, and something had to be done.
He didn't hide the fact that he was attracted to women and to white women. He didn't hide the fact that they were attracted to him. He sort of made that as part of his persona.
And that's the point. You know, it's not like just, okay, so he's chasing these white women, he's got all these white women or whatever. But understand this, beloved. You talk to the white woman and you ask her what is it that she's looking for in a man. She wants tall, dark, and handsome. You know, don't get it twisted. They like the black man. They want the black man. They're after the black man. But it doesn't mean that because that's their particular fetish or their desire that we have to succumb to that. That there's a story in the Holy Quran, Sister Claudia, in relation to Joseph being with Pharaoh's wife, trying to seduce him.
That's right.
And him resisting Pharaoh's wife. And then literally she frames him, you know, like, oh, he tried to rape me.
Yes.
But this is the same thing that was happening all over the South in America back in those days, where black men were getting lynched for just looking at a white woman. You know, in 1955, our little young brother, 14-year-old brother, was lynched for, they say, whistling
That's right.
at a white woman. So, you know, it's just really, really sad, in my view, that brother felt like he just needed to do that. Because, yes, on the one hand, it may have been in defiance of all of these white people who are obviously upset by what he was doing with these white women. But to me, it was also compromising him and making him more vulnerable and weaker by being with these women as opposed to being with his own woman.
Well, those white women, they see power. That's what it is.
Exactly, and they're attracted to power.
Of course. So.
Praise be to Allah.
It was very, very threatening also at the time. And that's why he got in such enormous amount of trouble.
In this tinderbox climate, the Burns defeat did more than give Jack Johnson a belt. It created a crisis and sent America into a white hope mania.
White America decided they wanted to reclaim their heritage, their right, their title.
It turned into a farcical thing because almost anybody who was white and who was big and who had a modicum of talent would be labeled the Great White Hope.
There became something called the White Hope era. Plowboys, gandy dancers, ranchers, anyone of the right complexion who was 175 pounds or over was thought to be a challenger. We need somebody. And they came out of the woodwork, out of the circus tents, out of everywhere. And they were terrible. The best fighter out there, the middleweight champion, Stanley Ketchel, the Michigan assassin. And there was never quite an assurance that he was human in the ring.
He was a brutal middleweight. You know, he's the kind of a guy that you have to kill before you could knock him out.
Stanley Ketchel was a great...
Imagine how desperate they were.
Exactly.
They ran out of heavyweights. There was no heavyweight that could challenge Jack Johnson. So they had a middleweight who they said was like a demon in the ring. You know, they said he was so brutal. He was unstoppable. To stop him, you had to kill him. So they literally, you know, groomed this middleweight now to challenge Ketchel, his name was, to challenge Jack Johnson.
Middleweight, one of the all-time great middleweights, and he was a great fighter and a hungry fighter and a street fighter kind of a guy. Jack Johnson outweighed him and outreached him and everything else, so I think this was probably a fight where they just would go along and have a good time and everybody would get paid.
There was a lot of money up for grabs because there was a film up for grabs.
Ketchel had drawn the color line against Sam Langford at middleweight, refusing to fight a black challenger for his own title. But he was happy to cross it upward to try to win the heavyweight crown back for the white race.
That's how desperate they were.
Yeah.
The champion outweighed the challenger by 35 pounds. Stanley Ketchel posed at the signing wearing an oversized padded coat and 5-inch heels on his cowboy boots to diminish the size difference. The champion had apparently agreed to one condition set by Ketchel's manager Willis Britt. It was that Jack would carry the Michigan assassin for 20 rounds to...
So he agreed that he would carry the fight for 20 rounds. He wouldn't knock Ketchel out for that length of time just to make it interesting. This is Jack Johnson. Showing you also how corrupt the whole fight game was in those days, because, you know, that type of side agreement could be made.
All into
protect Stanley's reputation as middleweight champion. Even though Johnson consented to do so, Ketchel made one crucial mistake.
Ketchel sees an opening and levels Johnson and knocks him down. Big mistake, huge mistake. I mean, Johnson felt, oh God, this isn't in the script. He gets up and he knocks Ketchel out. It was a punch that was so powerful, he took out Ketchel's teeth.
And the next thing you saw was Stanley Ketchel lying out and Johnson picking Ketchel's teeth out of his glove.
The moral of that story is follow the script, especially when you're fighting a guy who's bigger and better than you.
But that's the white man. They never follow the script. They make these agreements,
exactly.
And then we follow, and then they change.
Yeah, he thought that he could actually knock out Johnson. He got lucky. He got a lucky punch. He was supposed to be, you know, playing along with this thing going 20 odd rounds or whatever. But within a couple of rounds, he got a punch in, and Johnson went down. And Johnson said, "What?
Exactly.
I'm not having this."
And the teeth are in the gloves.
Yeah, the teeth are in his teeth were in his gloves. He hit the man so hard he fell over himself.
The white man's burden had become his master, and it unleashed a wall of hatred.
The world is spared the spectacle of a black man knocking out a white man. The world is denied.
You know, I've noticed even in the modern era of boxing, because I'm a bit of a boxing fan. I noticed they will talk about the color of the boxer's shorts, but they will not mention the color of their skin. They never say, you know, the black fighter or the white fighter or whatever. They talk about the color of their shorts, you know, because from day one, boxing has been very, very racist. But what they realized was that they couldn't actually compete on a racial level with black fighters. So eventually they had to drop the whole color description. Initially, that was all they were interested in, you know, whiteness, white supremacy, white being dominant in the ring or whatever. But once black people started to win and started to destroy them in the boxing ring, all of a sudden race is dropped, the color is dropped. And now, if anything, you're going to talk about the color of the shorts. That's just something I noticed in the modern era.
Access to this historical moment, because the white supremacy of the universe in 1908 is so demented and extreme. The knockout is stopped and the film is stopped.
The press reacted as if Armageddon was here, that this may be the moment when it all starts to fall apart for white society.
Boxing is known as the manly art or the sweet science, and blacks were not supposed to have the mental capacity to succeed. Well, Jack Johnson proved them wrong.
People who weren't interested in boxing beforehand now suddenly said, this isn't about boxing anymore. This is about racial supremacy.
Once Jack left Sydney with the heavyweight title in his hands.
And I hope you're looking at the cartoons that were appearing in the newspapers, because the images were so racist. Again, the whole kind of black and white minstrel type of look, the way they depicted black people with the long arms and the gorilla features and whatever. I mean, it was, I mean, you know, I marvel in truth at Jack Johnson just to have been operating in that arena.
That's right.
In those days, and look at his beautiful smile. You know, this brother, to all intents and purposes, had a very, very amazing attitude towards life, and you know, was able to befriend and be friendly to people despite all of the swirling hatred around him, and a real hatred, beloved family. You know, this man was not loved.
Which still happens today.
Absolutely.
He didn't try to calm white America down. He poured gasoline on the fire. 1909 was when Jack Johnson stopped being just a boxer and became a walking provocation, leaning hard into his celebrity status and making it very clear he had no intention of knowing his place. He stayed in first-class hotels and dressed like a prince. Tailored suits, silk shirts, diamonds on his fingers, a gold-topped cane, and the famous broad grin with a gold front tooth. He rolled up in enormous, high-powered cars at a time when most people, black or white, had never even ridden in one. When Southern police pulled him over for speeding and fined him, he was widely reported as handing over double the amount and saying, "Keep the change. I'm coming back the same way."
Jack Johnson didn't give a shit. He lived to break conventions. He lived the way he wanted to live. He was very flamboyant.
Johnson's lifestyle, he lived like he drove fast, pedal to the metal all the time.
He dressed in fancy clothes. He was the life of the party wherever he went.
Jack Johnson was a promoter in and of himself. He knew what he wanted, he knew how to do it. And if he had to prick society's tendencies, proper attitude.
See, that's the thing that just always amazed me, and that scared the life out of me, was this fatal attraction, this thing where every time you saw him, he was surrounded by white people, by Caucasians. He just never had an entourage of his own people. He never had that security, and obviously he put his trust in these people, even though there was such hatred. And then, you know, to top it all off, he's got these white women. Wow.
He would.
One thing that he would do was to wrap gauze around his penis to make it look larger, and press would pick up on this and write about it, and it would just infuriate people.
It frustrates white America because not only is he doing this.
So they were writing about his penis. I remember when Linford Christie was running in this country, and they were talking about his poundage. They were literally focusing on at the Olympics and other running track meets.
Not his skill.
Yeah, but looking at the man's bulge in his groin. And then obviously this was happening with Jack Johnson. I don't know whether there's any truth in that about him wrapping gauze around his things to make it look bigger.
It just was, and they couldn't take it.
Exactly. It was probably just a natural thing as a black man, but of course they had to talk about it and mythologize it. Mythologize it. Exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy, family. And then obviously they must be imagining him with the white woman, you know.
He's doing it with the heavyweight crown perched atop his head. So he's not just a fellow who's having these alliances with white women. He's a fellow that every American, white and black, knows, and he's flaunting it.
Jack Johnson was an incredible symbol of black aspiration, ambition, success, achievement, power, black might, and he stood up to whites in white arenas.
Jack Johnson scared the shit out of white America. And it's not just because Jack Johnson was a black man, it's because Jack Johnson was the wrong type of black man.
But how was he standing up to white America if at the end of the day he's encapsulated within their fold, within their control, even though as a black man, of course, he dominated that heavyweight division and he was earning good money.
And they were earning more money.
And they were always earning more money than him. And yes, he could be flash and he could have all of these material things, but how was he really benefiting? How did he really change anything? How did he change the condition for the masses of our people? You see, was he having any effect in that way? Because what he was doing was very much about his own self-aggrandizement, his own, self-satisfaction or whatever. But wow, I say I marvel at the fact that this man could be so wrapped up with these people.
I know.
On the one hand with the hatred, but yet having some of them in his corner and thinking that he could trust them.
In fact, Jack Johnson was white America's nightmare.
But nothing enraged white America more than who Johnson chose to be seen with.
Who did he choose to be seen with, dear family? Buana Zuki says, Bro Leah, there's a fairly good PBS documentary on Garvey and W.B. Du Bois. I would love for you to analyze like this. Yeah, inshallah, God willing, going forward, we'll have a look at that. And also, brother points out that this was a good documentary. The documentary that we're watching is on forgettable blackness, is the documentary. And Any Wright reminds us that the young brother that we mentioned earlier on, who was murdered in 1955, was Emmett Till, the 14-year-old who was murdered for, they accused him of whistling at a white woman. That's how easily, and I mean, that's 1955. We're going back here into 1908, 1910. That, you know, this is before the Titanic went down in 1912. So, you know, this was a really dark time for Black people. And yet, here you got this Black man who was absolutely just doing stuff, man, that must have driven these white people absolutely crazy. Dear family, in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 2, it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them as wives of all which they chose. And again, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was just touching on that in the lecture that we were watching. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, that they were white, and they took them as wives of all which they chose. The distinction made between God and men in the above scripture points to Black men, who are the sons, being the children of God, while the white woman is the daughter of her white father, the men. And because of the different natures of the two people, most of such relationships are illegitimately formed based on white supremacy and Black inferiority. A lot of us as Black people, we want a white woman because we think somehow that's going to elevate us in status, because we've been convinced that somehow we're lowly. And then if we can get with her, somehow that's going to make us better, you know. Not to mention the lust generated by the idea of the forbidden fruit. Again, you know, Black men were being killed for just looking at the white woman's clothes on the washing line. So now that's forbidden fruit. That's a forbidden area. So if you can go there, I mean, you know, that which is forbidden is always got that pull, that attraction. You tell your children, don't do that. And that's the thing they want to do. Whenever we're told, don't do a particular thing, that's the thing that most human beings then become drawn to. So this was the reality, dear family. You know, this is the scripture that really illustrates this condition, this fatal attraction. Because, and again, I say, you know, I've broken this down in the past on the Imagination show, but that whole story of King Kong, that great ape, it wasn't about a great ape. It wasn't about a gorilla. It was about a king from the East, a king-like people, a people who were captured in the East and brought on a westerly course in the holds of ships, or being towed behind a ship and manacled and chained, and then brought into the Western world and ridiculed and mocked and ill-treated and beaten, you see? And then that great people, that king, that King Kong, Kong being like Hong Kong, that part of the East, or the Congo, you understand? He falls in love with this white woman, and when you look at the two of them together, they're incompatible. The thing cannot work. It's not going to work. You know, just the size. And when we talk about size, we're not talking about necessarily the size in terms of, you know, he's big and she's small. No, we're talking about size in terms of spirituality, size in terms of, you know, the magnitude of God, as opposed to the daughters of men, or Satan or the devil. You know, it's a different reality when you're dealing with that type of magnitude. You see, the two things are not compatible, but yet this great king, this King Kong, this black man thinks that he can take this white woman and that he can climb the heights of the system with her, that he can somehow traverse the empire state building, that he can get to the top of society. That's the heavyweight champion of the world, that he can, move with the best of white people and get into their circles, get into their social circles, and ultimately climbs the empire state. He goes up as far as he can go in the empire till he gets to the top, and then ultimately they bring their warplanes and they shoot him down because that's inevitable when you're trying to climb up into another man's world. It ain't gonna work. You got to build your own world. Black people, we got to build our own society. We got to build our own nation. We've got to image a nation. We cannot keep trying to climb up into another man's world with his woman. It's not gonna work, family. It's not gonna work. It's just not going to work. It's not feasible.
Well, the heavyweight division at that time was totally devoid of talent. It was Jack Johnson and the Seven Dwarfs, literally. So what does the white hope hysteria do? Starts drumming for a fight with a man who hasn't fought since 1904 and was the undefeated heavyweight champion. P.S. He was white. James J. Jeffries. There was a theory by many that Jeffries still was the heavyweight champion. He had not lost his title in the ring, which was the accepted rule. He still was, in their mind's eye, even though these 6 years later, the champion of the world. Jack London, the novelist who was then a boxing writer as well, sort of sounded.
They were desperate.
They were.
So this man who had retired so many years prior, they dragged him out of retirement because they needed that white hope to beat Jack Johnson. They were obsessed with being the heavyweight champion of the world. When you see the way they behave today with Tyson Fury and with Usyk, the Ukrainian, and they're so excited because they got a couple of white men that they can call heavyweight champion of the world. They go on and on and on about Rocky Marciano and how he was the great heavyweight champion. They're desperate because the white man, he absolutely wants to be the dominant force on the planet. He's not, but he wants to be. He wants to project that he is the man. He is in charge. He's the best. He's superior, not only in terms of brain, but in terms of brawn as well, in terms of physical prowess. You see, he can't compete with us running. He can't compete with us in so many different arenas. And when it comes to boxing, pugilism, fighting, man, he wants to say, look, I'm the best, but he's just not there.
That's why in those competitions, when the muscle competition, why do they have to make themselves dark?
Yeah, they got
Why can't they just go the color?
They got to try and put on some tanning stuff
the brown
to try and look.
Yeah, because they know it looks good.
Because they know what looks good. You see, you got this pasty white body. It don't look good, family. The pasty white and muscle don't go together.
With disrespect to people.
No, but it's real. So that's why they have to put on color. Even in the Second World War, when the English women couldn't get tights, they would put gravy. They put gravy on their legs. This is real. Go and study the history. They would put gravy on their legs, be followed around by flies and bees and whatever, because they were trying to, look good looking. They wanted a good look, and to have a good look, you have to have a tan.
That's right.
You have to be dark. You see, you'll hear white people complain about being white and pasty. They don't like that look.
They don't. So they spent how many years of telling black people how ugly we are, then steal our birthright.
Then as soon as the sun comes out, you see them out there and they turn red because they're desperate. They're desperate to have what we have. Look at these white girls now injecting collagen and all this crazy stuff to their lips, into their bottoms.
Their hips.
They're buying fake butts.
Yes.
What do they call it? Brazilian butt. They got fake ones now that actually go into the
pants.
Into the pants. I mean, just to try and look like a black woman, try to get some shape into that iron board look. I mean, it's real, family. This is real. And then you got the poor black man. He's running out there picking up any old thing that he can grab, not realizing that his woman, she is the queen of the planet Earth.
Clarion call for Jim Jeffries, who had retired in 1905, to come back and wipe that golden smile off the face of Jack Johnson.
He's 300 pounds, has no desire to come out of retirement. He probably knows that his body's not ready for it, but the pressure becomes almost irresistible. It's not win the title back for yourself, it's win the title back for every Caucasian that breathes the breath in America.
The pressure on Jim Jeffries was enormous.
Jim, come off the alfalfa farm. America needs you.
It's up to you. You have to come back.
You've got to restore the heavyweight champion back to its right place, which is a Caucasian race.
Well, the best offer comes from a man named Tex Rickard, who offers $101,000 to the two, split 60-40, winner gets 60, and they signed.
Tex Rickard was an American original, and he eventually will become the great promoter of Jack Dempsey.
Jeffries finally relented. Had a lot to do with money, the reason he came back. But he was clear on why, the psychological reason. I'm coming back to prove that a white man is superior to a Negro. Suddenly, Jim Jeffries became the original Great White Hope, with all the hopes and dreams of the white race resting clearly on his shoulders.
And Jeffries bought into it because it had a lot to do with great white civilization being dominated by a black champion.
Now it moves from the sport pages, and it goes to the editorial pages, and it goes to the front pages, and it goes to the barbershops, and it goes to the universities. It permeates all of society. It is the first great fight of the 20th century, and all of America found themselves sucked right into the vortex of this major event.
There were all kinds of racist songs composed and played in dance halls and burlesque plays.
And we don't, as black people, we really don't appreciate how we are so much in the mix of the great competition that's going on this planet.
That's right.
Because mostly, as a people who find ourselves literally at war, we have, for the most part, been non-combatants in the war. We've just been victims. We've just been taking the blows, but we haven't necessarily collectively ever been fighting back. We've never collectively said, okay, let's form, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey got 6 million black people together, in the UNIA, okay? And that was phenomenal. But then we allowed him to be destroyed. You see, and then they deported him from America. He died in West London, here in the UK. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has done what he did. And I mean, the Nation of Islam, this is the last man standing. Understand this, family. The Nation of Islam is the last black man standing in the Western world. See, because they've defeated almost every other movement, group. I know you see some groups out there and they're trying to emulate what they see the nation doing, whatever. But I'm telling you, man, they haven't got the foundation. They haven't got that longevity. They haven't got that teaching that absolutely, destroys white supremacy. You see? But understand that the drama that you and I are involved in, it's the drama of the world. See, we are right at the forefront of this drama, and we never necessarily understood it. The white people have always understood it. We represent an existential threat to their very future. See, that's what our beautiful sister, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, was explaining to us in her great, fantastic research and her book, The Keys to the Colors. You see, the fear of genetic annihilation. They understand, family, that if the black man and the black woman is allowed to grow and develop in the manner in which God has prescribed for us, they can't compete with us. And that ultimately we will supersede them and they will become less and less and less, which is what's happening now in terms of demography. White people are a dying breed, while black people, the children are having children. We're just growing. We don't die, we multiply. But they're dying and they're becoming an old people. The vast majority of Caucasians on the planet are now old. They're not young. They're not having children. You understand? Their population is now at zero population growth. They cannot compete. So they know this, which is why you got all of these right-wing white supremacists now. They're tearing their hair out and they're going crazy. And they're saying, oh, the white man, you know, the white man's being treated less than the black man and it's unfair. And, oh, you know, we got to stop immigration and we got to throw these people out. And we got to, I mean, they're desperate, family. And they don't know what to do. But what they don't understand is that God is the author of what's going on today. There's nothing they can do to stop it. They can fight all they want. They can kill, and that's what they know. They will kill. They will maim. They will do everything possible to try to reverse the trend. But they will never, ever be able to stop this trend. Understand this, okay? By the year 2050, the planet's going to be brown. See, and vast swathes of it will be black. But brown. It's not white. Is finished.
Yes.
White supremacy is done, and some of them know this, and this is why you see they're just losing their minds.
And you noticed that when we were at the airport a few months ago, how brown the airport was.
Yeah,
you'd have thought you was in a black country.
yeah, but they're noticing it.
Yes, they are.
Every time a white man looks around now, he just sees brown faces.
And he's seen Muslims.
Yellow faces, Muslims, black people, and that's the future. As much as they don't like it, and as much as and some of us are so stupid, we're, oh no, but it's not real, it's, you know, and we're in denial.
Yes.
And we're apologizing. Apologizing for what? For being a human being on a planet that God gave to human beings, not beasts in human form who think that they got to be so dominant that they will kill and maim everybody else in order for them to maintain dominance over the planet and over the members of the human family. No way, man. That mentality is finished. That's done. So, family, this is what you and I have got to come to the realization about, that it's our time.
In praise of Jeffries. It was vicious press about Jack Johnson.
So this became not just a boxing bout. This became almost a black-white holy war.
A holy war. You see, this is what's going on, family. It is a holy war. Go ahead.
Right. That's the same with the football. The countries.
Yeah. You know, the World Cup is on now. You got to understand, man, you know, when you see Trump trying to prevent all of these African countries and doing everything to sabotage them, and they got to travel in and out of America from Mexico and all this kind of stuff, everything to make life as difficult as possible so that these teams can't actually compete on an even playing field. Because if they were able to compete on an even playing field, America's finished. And then if you look at the American team, if you look at the English team, if you look at the French team, how many black players have they got? It's all black. They got to use us to try and uphold their white supremacy. It's really laughable. And if we really had any sense, we would never play for these teams. We would say, go to hell.
In the months leading up to the fight, the promoters really successfully, they went to work and they did their job, and they almost did it too well. They brought things to an absolute fever pitch.
At 35 and well over 300 pounds when he started training, Jeffries had to work brutally hard just to get into fighting shape. By the end of it, he had lost almost 100 pounds, and sports writers gushed over his return to form. But rumors swirled that he couldn't sweat properly, was overtrained, and that the fight might be fixed. His camp was stocked with familiar white boxing names, including Johnson's old mentor, Joe Choyinski, and ex-champ Jim Corbett. The camp was regimented, grim, and closed off as the older body was being pushed back into shape. carrying the moral weight of the white race. Jack's camp was in the opposite mood. It was as much a salon as a camp. His entourage, friends, handlers, and constant stream of journalists and hangers-on moved through. His training sessions were half workout, half performance, as reporters watched him clown his way through sparring, cracking jokes, playing to the crowd, and even mock narrating his own sparring sessions in the third person. But even as he laughed and played to the crowd, he still lived under a constant cloud of menace. Even before the Jeffries fight, Johnson's life had always been punctuated by a drum roll of death, as written and verbal threats weren't uncommon. Whenever he fought white opponents, he'd get death threats, both from white crowd and in the mail, including an anonymous note signed KKK, warning him to lie down or we'll string you up. And it only got worse as the Jeffries fight approached.
Just imagine, that climate.
Yes.
And even up to the point of Muhammad Ali's campaign in the heavyweight division, he used to get those death threats as well when he fought white opponents. Muhammad Ali, they had to guard his water in the corner. They could never allow anybody anywhere near the water that he would use in the corner, the water that they would have for him to drink, to rinse his mouth or anything like that. They had to have top security around Muhammad Ali's corner and everything that he had to use. If you remember in the first fight with Sonny Liston, they put something got on his glove, and he for a round or two, Muhammad Ali couldn't see properly because Sonny Liston was wrapped up with the mafia, and they tried to fix the fight so that Muhammad Ali would lose. But you see, what did Muhammad Ali have? He had the Nation of Islam.
Yes.
See, around him, protecting him and making sure that, he didn't fall foul of their dirty tricks, you see?
Step inside of a boxing ring takes courage. And then to know that virtually every person there hates you, maybe hates you enough to kill you, to assassinate you. And then to fight and to have this look on your face as if you're out on a Sunday picnic and you don't have a care in the world.
They would send him letters saying, you fighting a white man, and if you knock him out, we'll kill you. He said, just kill my black buggers, I'm gonna knock this white man cold.
And, when you see the way Muhammad Ali was, then you know that he's been watching he took some of that stuff from...
What you had on that week was an influx of thousands upon thousands of people into Reno, Nevada. And everyone, pickpockets and drunks and gamblers, to corporate leaders and politicians, to celebrities. Everybody who was anybody, and some people...
Everybody who was anybody was attending this fight, family. The fight to prove white supremacy and black inferiority.
Who weren't was there. Nothing like that had ever been seen, before or since.
Now at 9 o'clock in the morning, the trains are arriving every half hour, bringing fight fans to see the match that has been billed as the Battle of the Giant. No sooner does one train unload when the next one pulls in jam to capacity. Outside the arena, 4 hours before fight time, $50 ringside seats are being scalped for $125 each.
The fight was on July 4th. When else are you going to hold a fight like that? The excitement, it just keeps building and building and building.
Extensive...
July 4th, you see, and it's not an accident that the founder of the Nation of Islam gave us our independence on the 4th of July. Very, very important, family, to understand the significance of that date that is called American Independence Day, and the fact that we as black people have been given that day as our independence from them, you see. But Jack Johnson, despite the fact that he was fighting to preserve the black race, so to speak, because I don't like the word race, we're not a race, but to preserve his own dignity as a black man, and really the black man and black woman's dignity throughout the world, these white people, they were absolutely promoting white supremacy. And the desire, when you see the crowd that came out for this fight, man, You know, everything was riding on this, on that particular day, American Independence Day.
Motion picture coverage has been planned as the entire world waits for the results.
And they would be reading it out in front of the newspapers, at all the very, very ritzy clubs that could afford their own teletape and ticker tape. A couple theaters that just charged admission to have somebody there with a megaphone so that they could read each round. Johnson lands the left and the right to the head. Jeffries comes back with the right to the body, and then they'd sit and wait for the next ticker tape.
At precisely 3 minutes to 1, Jack Johnson makes his way to the ring. Johnson is always the first to enter. So seriously does he take this ritual that it's written into his contract. A roar goes up. The crowd goes wild. 45 rounds. The battle of the century.
As Jeffries tried to come in behind that long left, and he tried to push him, and he tried to shove him, and Johnson would just hug him in the early rounds. And then when Jeffries would hug him back, he would holler, "No hugging me, Mr. Jeff, no hugging me." At one point, Corbett called out, "Why don't you do something, Johnson?" trying to goad him. And Johnson just looked at him over Jeffries' shoulder and said, "I'm just fighting like you did, Mr. Corbett." Johnson spent half his time saying, "Come on in, Mr. Jim, you want the same thing. You want some of this? Come on in, Mr. Jim. You're next." He really didn't care. He could have beaten everybody in the crowd that afternoon. And it's soon becoming evident that this is one-sided.
Jim Jeffries was a big man. He came out and he swung hard and he hit a lot of air. He couldn't find Jack Johnson. He's going to lose his energy. And so by the mid-rounds, by 7, 8, it's clear that he's not going to win. And Jack Johnson is taunting him. But then again, Johnson starts to turn to the task.
Jeffries goes down.
He knocks Jim Jeffries down for the first time. And as Jeffries gets up, he pummels him, knocks him down again. And the crowd starts hollering for the referee, Tex Rickard, to stop the fight.
For many Americans, it's sort of a sad, pathetic sight of this seemingly invulnerable mountain of a man just suddenly becoming small.
They did not want to see their man knocked out, but he allows it to go on for a third time. And the last scene is Jeffries on his haunches, right arm over the ropes, and his cornermen jumping in the ring. Basically, the White Hope crusade is over. Jim Jeffries, the carrier of the banner, is a beaten man.
At that single moment that Jeffries goes down, the white race goes down.
That's how powerful that fight was and what it represented, dear family. All of that was taking place and basically staging, you know, this world that we now know. This is the history of white supremacy. This is the way in which black people ultimately took over boxing. This is how you get a Muhammad Ali, a Sugar Ray Leonard. This is how you get all of these great fighters that today dominate the sport. You understand? Bud Crawford and all of these today. That's the foundation, that's the background that our brother had to battle his way in order to establish black people in that arena.
In the hours after Reno, while Jack Johnson was on top of the world, the country was coming apart underneath him. In at least 25 states, in around 50 cities, white mobs answered those celebrations.
They rioted, family. They rioted. And they killed, they murdered black people like it was sport because they lost the boxing match. Yeah. This is the reality. The figures that they give is like 20-something, 26 black people were slaughtered in the aftermath of this fight, but it was much more than that. And it was countrywide that white people erupted into violence because they couldn't prove that they were supreme in the boxing ring. Imagine a mentality like that.
Sick.
Violence. Race riots broke out, with possibly more than 20 people killed and hundreds injured, almost all of them black.
This is open race warfare.
Biggest race riot in this country after the Civil War.
There were deaths, there were lynchings, there were slashings. And if white America was scared of Jack Johnson prior to the Jeffries fight, it was even more scared to him now. The Great White Hope had gone down in flames. America's worst nightmare had just turned even worse.
Should white men suffer the indignity of watching this black man beat this white man?
Imagine being Jack Johnson in that situation. Look at the crowd. Do you realize that there was very few black people in that crowd?
You wouldn't even think we
Black people never
existed.
went. No, black people never really went to the fight. It was dominated by white people. Black people would have been in tremendous danger in a crowd like that. You know, but imagine this lone black man in that arena, family. Can you imagine the courage, the bravery, the effrontery of this black man to be so bold, to be able to relax and to be able to be mocking and talking to his opponent and talking to the crowd and talking, and whilst he's beating the hell out of this man? I mean, honestly, man, you know, when we say the black man is God, we really don't understand the reality of that statement, but it is a reality. The black man is God. And Jack Johnson proved and demonstrated that reality.
And in the ring, they talked about it in the United States Congress. The concern over these fight films was to that extent. So much so that they passed a law forbidding the importation.
Imagine, they're so ashamed that they literally passed the law to ban showing that fight, showing the film, and banned fight films. And I mean, that law went on for a few years before they rescinded it. But imagine, this is how embarrassing this was to them, that they didn't want the rest of the world to see what had happened. And so the film was banned. The fight film of Jack Johnson defeating Jeffries was banned, family.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
why,
And they passed the law. It was against the law. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. That's why we need our own world, because we're going along with all these laws that they make up, and we're not going with God's law.
Exactly. They if you see the way they manipulated the so-called law just recently in this country to convict a few young people who had attacked an Israeli arms factory in this country to basically prevent the genocide that's going on in Gaza, and they manipulated and fixed the law in such a way that they convicted these people on criminal damage charges, but then sentenced them as terrorists. And the jury, when the jury convicted them, didn't know that they were going to be sentenced as terrorists, even though they were not charged with terrorist offenses and they were not convicted on terrorist offenses. They were sentenced as terrorists. I mean, these people are some sick people. You see, and when it comes to their law, how they can manipulate it and make it fit whatever scenario.
Whatever to get out of.
When they went and attacked Iraq, they said it was legal. They used law. You listen to Tony Blair when he was being questioned about the enslavement of black people that took place. He said, "Oh yeah, but at the time it was legal." You see, and you know, Adolf Hitler, when he was doing his thing in the early 1930s or whatever, everything that he did, he made it lawful. It was enacted through law in German society, in the German government. It was lawful what they were doing. I mean, honestly, I think there's a scripture that describes them using the law.
That's right.
We're in one of the scriptures, we're called lawful captives. Lawful captives. So they made it legal to enslave black people.
Yes.
Yeah, man, you got to understand the way Satan moves.
And the showing of fight films.
There were bills in Congress introduced to ban fight films, particularly this one.
A law which lasted some 20 years before it was repealed.
It was a pathetic attempt to do that. Everyone knew that it had taken place. 6 or 8 northern states had bills proposed to forbid interracial marriages. This was a direct response to Johnson's victory and his liaisons with white women.
How did Jack Johnson react to all of this himself as a person? How did the man react?
Obliviously, as if none of it had happened. He went on to Chicago to open his Café de Champion.
It was big cafe, bar, saloon. And I'm sure if you wanted to place a bet, if you wanted to find a prostitute, you know, you could find action there.
Jack Lee. So okay, you know, Jack Johnson, he wins, he's the champion, He goes on to open a cafe in Chicago, but then he listened to the white man. He's saying, well, if you in that place, if you wanted to place a bet, if you wanted a prostitute, whatever. So this is the problem. We become corrupt.
Yes.
Like the same people that we've just defeated. So we're playing their game. We're all wrapped up, you know, whether it's P. Diddy, whatever, these black people, they think that they can go down that Epstein kind of route, that we can play that
fit in
perverse game and, you know, roll with these high rollers in their filth and debauchery. And we don't understand that we don't fit in that circle, and that when they're ready, we're the ones that are going to get thrown immediately under the bus. We're the first ones who are going to be convicted. We're the ones who are going to be basically condemned and persecuted. We're the ones who are going to be called out. We're the ones who are going to be exposed, because we think we can run with these people and play their games. I'm looking at, you know, they always depict Jack Johnson with a cigar in his mouth, but he's supposed to be an athlete, supposed to be a boxer, supposed to be a fighter. Then he's drinking champagne, he's doing all of these things. So, you know, at the end of the day, family, it's like a huge contradiction. It's this thing where this attraction that we have to the devil, to Satan, to his world, to his woman, it's fatal. It can never work for us. Go ahead.
This the scene that was just shown, it goes right along with our brother Mark Vaughan, who says, Assalamu alaikum, family, very insightful and in depth. As always, it looks as though it was very possible that the story of King Kong is or could be based on the figure of the great Jack Johnson.
Absolutely. 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 They, you know, the devil, he's very clever, family, the way he tells stories, you see, and he don't necessarily have to give you Jack Johnson. He give you King Kong. But when you analyze that story, you'll see that it's one and the same. It's one and the same. Look at the way they depicting these little black children and black people, you know, with the massive lips and all the rest of it, and Jack Johnson dressed with the top hat and the tails and the cigar and whatever. You know, we're just a caricature of the white man, basically, the way in which we're being depicted.
Even harder into his celebrity. He left Reno as the undisputed heavyweight champion and one of the highest paid athletes in the world, as his purse share and bonuses put him into six-figure territory. For the next 2 years, Jack wouldn't defend his title and ended up drawing his own color line.
And part of the reason that Johnson pulled his own color line was the whites were so easy to fight. The blacks were the tough ones. In fact, when Sam Langford came to him, who chased him to England for a shot at the championship, said, Sam, the world doesn't want to see two black men fight for the heavyweight championship.
Johnson drew the reverse color line and fought mainly white fighters because that's where the money was.
By early 1912, the White Hope movement was desperate. Most plausible white contenders had already been beaten by Johnson or each other, but one last man remained standing. Fireman Jim Flynn had already been knocked out by Jack years earlier, but he was a seasoned white heavyweight who had recently beaten Carl Morris and Al Kaufman, and for a $30,000 guarantee, Jack took the fight. If I lose to this man, Flynn said to his manager, shoot me. Round after round, Jack continued to toy with Flynn, leaving him no choice but to revert to his dirtiest weapon, the headbutt. He literally jumped up off the floor, trying to smash his skull into Johnson's chin. Referee Ed Smith kept warning, stop that butting or I'll disqualify you. But Flynn ignored him. In the ninth, with Flynn still hurling his head forward and the champion still comfortably in control, Captain Fred Fornoff of the New Mexico Mounted Police climbed into the ring with a revolver and stopped the bout, awarding the fight to Johnson and infuriating white America even more. Most incendiary of all, Jack continued to
I mean, imagine, you know, it was so blatant, the man just headbutting, doing anything under the sun to win, that one of their own policemen had to just stop it and declared Johnson the winner. Okay, look at this scene here and what they're saying. The most infuriating thing.
Head forward and the champion still comfortably in control. Captain Fred Fornoff of the New Mexico Mounted Police climbed into the ring with a revolver and stopped the bout, awarding the fight to Johnson and infuriating white America even more. Most incendiary of all, Jack continued to date and marry white women in full public view. But inside his marriage, things were getting dark. His wife Etta lived between two worlds, rejected by much of respectable white society for marrying a black man, never fully accepted in her husband's black circles, and forced to endure his constant infidelities.
I wonder about his husband's black circles. What black circles? You just never saw Johnson really in a black circle, you know? Very, very interesting.
Never fully accepted in her husband's black circles, and forced to endure his constant infidelities and alleged beatings.
There was abuse. Certainly, there was abuse. And I think he internalized pressure. He didn't show it. He didn't show it publicly. I think he showed it with Etta, though. And so Etta's life, I think, was pretty miserable. And so if she thought it was going to be happy, she's wrong. You know, here was a white woman married to the most hated black man in America at this time. I think she was a very lonely person. Certainly she was ostracized by white America. Black America didn't like.
Remember what we said, family? It can't work. It don't work. They're incompatible.
White America. Black America didn't like her anymore. So Etta was lonely. Jack Johnson was heroically unfaithful. It's not a very attractive life. And in the end, she couldn't take it. She probably was a bit fragile and unbalanced to begin with. She was an alcoholic.
Until one day, she shot herself and died in a hospital shortly after. Etta's death put Jack back in the headlines, and the press highlighted his relationships with white women. But he had little regard for those who were plotting his imminent downfall, one that would come sooner than he expected. But he had little regard for those who...
See, he's showing his gun. He's got his gun on his hip. And again, there's so many of us as black people, we really think that these little pea shooters that white people allow us to have, that somehow that equalizes us to the firepower that they bring when they're ready to start gunning us down and shooting and killing black people wholesale. I mean, you know, this sense of bravado and this sense of power that this little pistol that some of us have got, or this shotgun that we got, or the street sweeper that we got, or the machine gun that we got, because, you know, there's all kinds of AR-15s that black people have acquired now that we've got, and we think, yeah, if anything goes down, I'm going to be able to... Let me tell you something, family. When they come through, and I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan address this, when they come through the neighborhood with their helicopter gunships, with their tanks, with their, you know, heat-seeking missiles and all the rest of it. I mean, you know, it's like Saddam Hussein, all the weapons that he had, he got from America, he got from these Europeans. And I'm telling you, they sold him inferior weapons in comparison to what they had and what they ultimately brought against the Iraqis when they were ready to turn over that country in 2003. So it just makes me laugh again sometimes when I see the way we are, when we got these little weapons and we think somehow it's going to protect us. No. No weapon forged against the righteous will prevail. But our weapon, dear family, is truth. Our weapon is God. Our weapon is our righteousness. See, it's not about picking up the carnal weapon of the white man. That's a mistake.
Were plotting his imminent downfall, one that would come sooner than he expected.
His downfall will come sooner than he expected.
With the climate then as it was, and Jack Johnson's behavior, they had to try to get him somehow.
December, he marries. Lucille Cameron. Not good timing, I don't think, especially since his first wife died in September. This just intensifies the public going after him.
This man was an embarrassment to the white community. This man was being sermonized against and preached against and pulpit pounded against.
It was clear that there were no white boxers on the horizon that was going to eliminate this threat, to knock them out, to get rid of them, to shut them up.
So Johnson had the world all to himself.
You have to go at him in another way.
Because the society he was living in now was really out to get him. Where he was vulnerable was his sex life.
The government was hell-bent on getting the conviction of Jack Johnson. They had a huge file on him. They got him eventually on what was a technical violation of the Mann Act.
On June 25, 1910, just over a week before the fight of the century, President William Taft signed the White Slave Traffic Act, better known as the Mann Act, making it a federal crime to transport women across state lines for prostitution or for any other immoral purpose.
White slavery sounds like the white genocide that the South African whites are supposed to be suffering. You see how these people, we got a real enslavement process that black people have been through, 400 years of it, but now they come up with a White Slavery Act that is signed into law that they can use to trap somebody like a Jack Johnson transporting women over state lines. My God.
So if we can get one of these women to admit she was a prostitute, she traveled across state lines with Jack Johnson, boom, technically he's guilty of a violation of the Mann Act. When this case was first posed, Attorney General said, this is a perversion of the Mann Act. It's not what the Mann Act was passed for. But then the investigator said, well, this is the only thing we can get Jack Johnson on. So the Attorney General, and literally what is a smoking gun document, says, if this is all you can get, go after him. Was he guilty? Of course he was guilty. He was a boxer who traveled around America. He traveled with women who weren't his wife. He traveled with prostitutes. Was he making money from them? Absolutely not. But on a very technical sense, he's guilty of a violation, as probably millions of other Americans were. The government didn't go after them. They went after Jack Johnson, and they got him.
Black America in particular strongly objected to that prosecution, persecution as they have called it.
Johnson to keep.
Just think about the way they went after Mike Tyson. Think about the way they went after Michael Jackson. Think about the way they went after O.J. Simpson. I mean, we can go on. And so many of our great celebrities, we don't understand who and what we're dealing with when it comes to this system, and we play right into their hands.
Himself out of jail was involved in a paying scheme to federal officials and state officials. And that's well documented in federal records in his case file that he was paying these people money. In fact, his family took some deposition to report to federal officials that this was going on and it was really draining him. And there was lots of money involved in this.
Fleece the nigger. This is written, this is what they were doing. He's trying to pay them off. My God.
It's the scheme here to keep him out of jail.
I think Jack Johnson's reaction initially was, if I put money in enough palms, this will go. This too will pass. It's only gradually he becomes aware that this isn't going to go away. What was it like to be Jack Johnson at this time? The pressures, the internal, external pressures on him. This is a guy who's facing some hard times. He had an all-white jury. There wasn't a black person on the jury. There wasn't a woman on the jury. It was a jury of 12 white men. I don't see how any lawyer could have gotten them off, really.
Anytime you get a chance, study the trial of Marcus Messiah Garvey, and you'll see another travesty, with the way in which they railroaded this brother. And when you hear the impassioned statement from Marcus Messiah Garvey in that courtroom, and you see the way in which he was convicted on trumped-up charges, I mean, and there's a litany and a record of this type of thing with black people down the ages. It's nothing new. Jack Johnson was one of the first that we can point to, but this has been a pattern all throughout history in the white man's world in the Western Hemisphere.
Federal prosecutors went back into Jack's past and built a case around Belle Schreiber, an earlier girlfriend who was a white sex worker he traveled with between 1909 and 1910, sending her money and rail tickets to join him on the road. In early 1913, the all-white Chicago grand jury indicted him for transporting her for immoral purposes. After 5 days of testimony, the jury needed only a short night session to come back with a verdict: guilty. Jack was sentenced to a year and a day in federal prison and a $1,000 fine. He was freed on bond while his lawyers filed an appeal, but he knew what waited if he stayed. And after consulting with his mother on what to do, she told him she'd rather see her son die on the outside than live in a white man's prison. So, just one day after his appeal was lodged, he quietly vanished.
Ooh, brothers and sisters, I hope you appreciate this history that, far too few of us know about, this reality that Jack Johnson went through and what it really means, the symbolism of all of it, what it means for us today.
In 1914, Jack set up in France in a comfortable house, but he later insisted that nothing came into my life in the way of adequate compensation for the grief of being cut off from my people.
So many so-called Black Americans had to flee to Europe. People like Paul Robeson ended up in Europe because of the persecution in North America, where they were accusing him of being a communist and all kinds of stuff that was going on. Again, Jack Johnson is one of so many who ended up having to flee America because of the type of persecution that was taking place, the level of racism.
Of being cut off from my people and my home. He admitted that his separation from his mother caused him the deepest wound, as she died while he was abroad, and he never forgave himself for not being there.
Jack Johnson is pretty much on his own. It's hand to mouth. The man's not a wealthy man. And, he's doing various things. He's appearing here and performing here and boxing an exhibition there. It's whatever he can to get money.
By that time, European promoters saw that they could make serious money out of staging the fugitive champion's next big defense. And in June 1914, he made a significant title defense in Paris against American heavyweight Frank Moran. An overweight 240-pound Johnson, and rumored to be drinking heavily, still outboxed Moran over 20 rounds and kept the title. But critics noted he looked slower and less sharp. The sense that he was slipping physically began right here.
He was slipping, dear family. And again, imagine a black man fleeing to Europe.
That's right. Yeah, of all the places.
Fleeing to Europe as if they're not all in cahoots.
One of the White Hopes down in Kansas was a big ranch hand, 6'6" and bigger. He looked like
when the mother of Jesus had to flee back in the day, they fled to Egypt.
That's right.
See, an all black place, because Egypt was black 2,000 years ago, dear family. It's only now, if you were listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan earlier, you would have learned how it became whitened, how gradually, as a result of race mixing and pushing blacks more into the interior of Africa, how Northeast Africa, the so-called Middle East became lighter and lighter as a result of racism and race mixing.
the man that Jack would have met at the top of the beanstalk. Johnson's only comment is, if they make White Hopes any bigger, I'll have to get stilts. Jess Willie's already killed a man in the ring. He's got to be powerful. And so two promoters got together enough money to stage a fight in Havana, Cuba in 1915. Jack Johnson versus Jess Willie, the White Hope. The promoter knows, theoretically, Johnson wants to make a deal to come into the U.S. The word is, Curley tells him that you do this fight, for which you'll get $35,000. We will make an arrangement with the U.S. authorities. They will drop the Mann Act conviction and prison sentence. Never confirmed. Curley denies it, but that's been the common scuttlebutt ever since.
I think he's going into the fight clearly on the level to win the fight. Willard's not a particularly good fighter, and Johnson should win. I don't think Johnson took the fight very seriously and training very hard for it. Besides, he's 37 years old by now. Johnson's not in the best condition, but he's in good enough condition that he thinks he's going to win. And he was telling people before the fight, bet on me. I'm going to win this fight.
April 5th, 1915. Cuba is crowded with American tourists, eager to watch Jess Willard, the man Jack Curley has proclaimed the next heavyweight champion. A roar goes up as the champion makes his way to the ring. Johnson still clings to his superstition of being the first to enter the ring. Temperature 103 and rising. Round one. 45 rounds for the heavyweight championship of the world.
He tries for a knockout in the first 8 rounds and throws everything he has at Willard. Willard is cut, Willard is red, Willard is beaten. He just takes everything. After the 8th round, Johnson's stamina, which was always great, begins to seep out. It's almost like the sand coming out of an hourglass. And towards the middle round, about the 15th, it now becomes Willard who's pushing forward.
Now, Jess Willard was not a great fighter, but he was a pretty good defensive fighter. He was very big. And so Jack Johnson hit him repeatedly. Willard didn't go down, and Willard would tie him up. And Willard had a reasonably good jab to keep Johnson away.
In the 25th round, Willard throws a wild swinging right hand that hits Johnson above the heart. Not only does Willard feel him go limp, people at ringside can hear him let his air out. In the corner between the 25th and 26th rounds, Johnson says to one of his cornermen, "Tell my wife I'm getting tired. Will you please see that she gets out of here?" 26th round, Willard smites him right on the point of the jaw.
Johnson goes down. It's happened.
And the dying gladiator throw down and is counted out.
The great white hope has finally arrived.
The great white hope has finally arrived.
I'll say, Bawana says Johnson didn't go into that fight to win. He went into that fight to get readmission back into the country.
Back
it was
into
a political fight.
A political fight. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if it was something that was also thrown.
Jack Johnson was a loser. Jess Willard was now the heavyweight champion of the world, and there wasn't to be another black challenger 22 years.
Willard was a new savior. Nobody praised him as a fighter, but they praised him as a savior of the white race. Jack Johnson was written off. He became a non-person again.
The loss didn't change his legal status. He was still a fugitive from U.S. justice, unable to go home without facing his Mann Act sentence.
Which is what he wanted. He wanted to get back into America now.
On the morning of July 20th, 1920, after nearly 7 years abroad, Jack crossed from Mexico back into the U.S. and surrendered to federal authorities at the border. He was sent to the federal penitentiary at Leavenworth to serve his 1 year and 1 day Mann Act sentence. Inside, he was not treated like a typical convict. Reports described him as a trustee prisoner, often used as an orderly and given relative freedom of movement.
He was a model prisoner. The warden said he was a great guy. And he was. He was a nice person. He was a likable person. People that met Jack Johnson really liked him.
When he was released in 1921, Chicago's South Side gave him a spectacular welcome. And for a few days, it felt like the old days. But reality finally hit when he realized that the sport had moved on.
It's a different era now. It's a different reality. This is when you got people like Joe Louis was coming through. You can see Joe Louis there on the canvas of the ring because he got knocked out.
Although Johnson still did exhibitions where he shadowboxed and sparred for small audiences well into his 60s, his end came not in a ring, but on a Jim Crow back road in North Carolina.
1946, speeding to New York in one of his fast roadsters. He went off the road in North Carolina, coming to the Louis Kahn second fight, June of '46. Smashed into a tree and was killed. The line by John Lardner is one of the best lines in all of sports. Jack Johnson was killed crossing the white line for the last time.
Johnson's body was transported back to Chicago, and he was buried in Graceland Cemetery, in the same plot with his first wife. His grave was originally unmarked. Later, markers, including one added after Ken Burns' film, finally acknowledged him as the first black heavyweight champion of the world. For almost a century after his death, That Mann Act conviction just sat there on the books, the official word that America wanted to remember about him. Then, in the 2000s, people started trying to erase it. They filed a petition under President George W. Bush, arguing that the 1913 trial was a racially motivated abuse of federal power. But nothing happened. When Barack Obama was elected in 2008, the campaign tried again, but the Justice Department's Pardon Office quietly advised against it, saying they preferred to focus on living petitioners, and Obama never signed it. The final act, however, came from an unlikely direction. In 2018, after years of stalled efforts, Sylvester Stallone called Donald Trump and personally asked him to clear Johnson's name. Trump liked the story, and on May 24, 2018, in a made-for-TV Oval Office ceremony with Stallone, Lennox Lewis, Deontay Wilder, and Johnson's great-great-niece Linda Haywood looking on, Trump signed an executive grant of clemency, a full posthumous pardon, 105 years after the conviction. For some, that Oval Office ceremony felt like closure. For others, it was just paperwork catching up to what black fight fans and historians had known for decades, that Johnson's real crime was refusing to live by Jim Crow's script and trying to prove every time he stepped through the ropes that he was never unforgivable blackness.
I hope you enjoyed that, family.
Very interesting.
I hope that, really the subject, that fatal attraction, it's just not a road that we should travel anymore. And as a people, we must learn from the history. We've had so many great people, man. Jack Johnson was an absolute great of ours. He turned this world upside down, but at the same time, unfortunately, where he could have been even more great, he played into the hands of the enemy, and the enemy ultimately, spoiled his legacy. And praise be to Allah, he didn't just go out in the ring as such. That line about him crossing the white line, I thought they thought that was a great line, but that's how he died, in a car crash, hitting into a tree. But may Allah be pleased with him for all that he did for the benefit of our people, in becoming the first heavyweight champion of the world, beating and destroying that white myth of white supremacy. So that's it, family. Thank you. I pray that, something that was shared with you this evening was of interest, and that, again, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that history is best qualified to reward our research, and we should know the history that has unfolded that brings us to where we are today. So thank you. May Allah bless you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. All praises
Praise
be
be
to
to
Allah.
Allah.
I'm not sure if I'll be able to play anything because my laptop is going to die any minute.
The question is asked, why did Trump pardon him and not Obama? Because Obama was terrified, scared to death to do anything for black people, to be accused of favoring black people. He really didn't do a great deal for us. Other than becoming president, he didn't do anything. He wasn't elected to be president for black people. He was elected to be the president of the United States of America, the CEO of white supremacy. So he was never going to be the one to do that. But Trump being a maverick, Trump being who he is, Trump who loves to go to the boxing matches and loves to be surrounded by fighters. Trump couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag, but he likes to be surrounded by champions and fighters. And so I think Trump again saw an opportunity for self-aggrandizement, for being the man who would pardon Jack Johnson. And so Trump did it. You know what I mean? Bush was an outright racist. He wouldn't do it. But Trump ultimately did it because it benefits Trump. It makes Trump look good in the eyes of black people. So that's why Trump did it. Go ahead, sister.
No, well, I'll have to end because look, my screen is.
All right, no
But
problem.
no, but I'll just say, don't forget to tune in to the Final Call Radio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let's feed our mind on the words of God through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Don't forget also to subscribe to the Final Call newspaper, the only newspaper that is unbought and uncompromised. If you can't get the hard copy, you can download the digital copy and receive your Final Call newspaper wherever you are. And don't forget, tune in to NOI.org every Sunday. Student Minister Daniel Mohammed, he did a fantastic lecture Sunday just gone, and you can rewatch it on media.noi.org. Don't forget, all roads lead to the science of reggae.
This Saturday at the Radisson Red Hotel in Heathrow, dear family, starting at 12 noon, going on till 8 at night. And also there's an after party featuring the legendary sound system called Saxon Sound. It's going to be a terrific day.
And don't forget, go on to YouTube and download our brother Maltef's song, which is being released this Sunday. Sorry, we can't play it this week because my computer is going to die. And if you tap in, Father, if I could wake up, if I could wake you up. I'll say it again. If I could wake you up, download it and support our brother, which will be released the 21st of June. Take care. Stay blessed. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for your time as well. May Allah God continue to guide, bless, and protect you all, and have a blessed evening or afternoon or morning wherever you are on the planet. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.